All right. Well, another episode here of Confessions of a Street Broker, and got a long time friend of mine here, man, and knew him before the real estate business, but really excited. We finally got it all worked out here, man. Mr. Steve LaMure, Dominus Commercial President.
Yes, sir.
What's happening, man?
I think the last time or one of the first times we met was in almost a studio like this, but it was not a podcast studio.
No, it was probably in my studio in Dallas.
It was a music deal.
Yeah, I don't know if the Jimmy Page thing on that wall in there.
Yeah.
We ripped that off the front of the building and put it up in here.
Oh, that's cool.
Because we ended up shutting it down probably 2 years ago, and so I pulled that off, and it's just been sitting in a vacant warehouse we had, or it's been bounced around our vacancies, but we kept that, and I was like, that was like a piece.
Cool.
So it turned
Nice.
that wall was perfect size for it, so it
Yeah.
worked out. But
Good.
But no, man, golly, we've known each other for 25 years.
When did you get
I
out
was
of tech?
21 years old.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It was right after you stopped playing football.
mhm.
I met you like that next semester.
Yeah. And so we got hooked up because my best friend was one of your best friends and
Yep.
family, and Zach, and then Zach and I ended up living together.
Yeah. Yeah.
That house
Yeah.
was a good time, man.
There was some boxing matches there. All sorts of craziness.
We had that garage set up. Our wallpaper was Coors Light boxes everywhere. We had a vending machine that dispensed Coors Light only.
Yeah. Thank God. Cell phones weren't as prevalent then with video and pictures, right?
Well, okay, so between the studio and the house, that house is what led to the studio we were just talking about, because we were so damn loud and such a nuisance in that neighborhood. Our landlord loved us because we paid our rent on time every time, and we never bitched, and but man, the neighbors were like, you do not belong here. So we saw the writing on the wall. We had to move. And that's when, Nick was like, hey, let's move downtown or something. I was like, well, I'll move to Deep Ellum, but I was like, I got to find a place to put all my musical gear. And so I went looking for somewhere to put it. And that's where I found the studio, and then became a tenant, ended up buying it. But
That's cool.
if we wouldn't have raised that much hell in that neighborhood, who knows what would have happened.
Right.
So
It was a good time.
it was.
I had a couple of good times over there. So
For sure. So, well, man, I don't know if you remember this, but you were the first person that ever interviewed me for commercial real estate.
really,
Yeah. You were, I think you were right at the point where you were fixing to start Dominus, and you're just kind of like, I think Zach came and worked for you for like 6 months,
Yeah.
I think. But before Zach, I was like, look, I just remember me and you went to Hooters in Irving.
of course, the
show
only
up-
place to interview someone.
Yeah, you show up in a suit and you're like, all right, let's get like 30 wings and a pitcher of beer and talk
go.
about this. I wasn't ready to commit to commercial real estate at that point. I was still a rocker, and I was like, I'm going to do this. But yeah, that's just a fun fact that I don't know if you remember that. But
I don't, but I do remember Zach working for me. It was great because, I started the company out of my house.
Yeah.
And Zach was my first employee.
Yeah.
And we had the whole upstairs because we didn't have any kids at the time. So we had the whole upstairs for an office.
Yeah.
And I'd walk by Zach's bedroom at like 7 a.m, beat on the door and be like, hey, time to go to work.
Yeah.
And he'd get out of bed and, roll down the hall to our other bedroom where we had desks set up. And
Yeah.
so he was never late.
Yeah. Never. And you always knew he was going to be there. So, well, man, let's just kind of start from the beginning. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not an anomaly, but I'm in a small percentage. But I grew up in New Mexico on a ranch, and real small town. Dexter had like 25 people in my class.
Oh wow.
Came to Dallas for the University of Dallas in Irving, that
Okay.
and then really, UD is not a business school. It's become more of a business school, but liberal arts. So it teaches you how to think, but it doesn't teach you much about business. So my first job, I was at the Wild Turkey on
over in Hines,
Walnut Hill, yeah. And
I actually had lunch there the other day.
Oh yeah, it's a cool
It's a
place.
great little place.
It's a
man.
cool dive bar. But I was there trying to figure out what the heck to do because I'd graduated and going home was not an option. And there was a guy playing pool. And he had a really nice suit on. He even had one of those like gold bars under his under his tie.
He had accessories.
Oh yeah. And I thought, man, this dude is successful. And so I went and played him in pool and asked him what he did. He was a beverage distributor for Sheps, so he sold beer and wine.
Yeah.
And I called him every day for 30 days. And he finally called me back and was like, "Okay, stop calling me. You're hired." And I started doing merchandise. I was, at Tom Thumbs at 2:00 in the morning, building like sand pits for the Corona displays and stuff like that.
End cap displays.
Yeah. So that was my first gig because I didn't know. I didn't know what to do. And then I got into real estate. Actually, in Las Colinas, I was selling insurance. I did a little stint as an insurance salesman.
Okay.
And I sold some insurance to a guy who owned a brokerage company, Phil Baker. He owned Baker Commercial. He had just left the Carpenter family not too many years before that and started his own firm. And I didn't even know what commercial real estate was, but I knew that I didn't like selling insurance. So, that's how I moved on from that. But that's kind of how it kicked off, man.
So, okay, well, let's back up because I want to talk about one thing too. You were a rugby player in college, right?
Yeah.
You look like a rugby player.
Yeah, man.
You still do.
I played 2 years ago.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
So what made you get into that? Was that? I wouldn't think that happened in New Mexico.
No,
right?
I did run into. I was in Australia for a short trip and ran into it, but I think really what got me into it was my anger, my childhood anger that needed to come out, and then the coach, who I'm still very close with. He's like a second dad to me for sure.
Yeah.
He saw me walk in and was like, "Okay, there's a big dude," and that's how I got into it. Yeah, I fell in love with it, man. I played for 22 years, pretty solid, and then every once in a while I'll go back and do that. 2 years ago when I played, I was in for like 5 minutes and tore my calf muscle. I'm like, okay, stop this silliness. But
quick, fast twitch muscle fibers don't work so well over 40.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it was funny because we're playing it was an alumni match, so we're playing these kids, these college kids, and they're certainly not as thick as we are. And I was running at this kid, and I thought, man, I'm just going to mow him over. And boy, that backfired. He hit me so hard. It was like a truck. Yeah.
Oh,
but
that's cool.
Big part of my life. Yeah. For sure. As you know, in your sports, it's like it pulls on your string all the time.
Yeah.
But
so the choice to go to UD, was that a Catholic choice or was that?
It was, but the biggest reason was my sister Meg had gone to UD and she lived here in town. And so it was like, and she'd gotten married and had a couple of kids. So it was like,
comfortable.
Very comfortable.
Made sense.
I'd go to her house on the weekends and stuff like that.
How did you end up meeting Zach and them?
That was my, after my raging, I started doing some youth ministry work at Holy Family.
Okay. So that's where
that's where I met the whole family. And Betty kind of took me in. Here I am, just graduated from college, lost, wondering, and she'd have me over for dinner all the time. So it was great.
No, it's what a wonderful woman, man. She it was always so funny that Zach was wild ass Zach.
Yeah.
And his mom was a nun.
Yeah. I know, right? Yeah. The best part of that was going to eat at their house.
Oh, it was awesome.
They'd throw like a giant thing of spaghetti in, and like I'd serve myself a normal serving, and I'm working on like my first bite, and I look over and the plates are empty and they're grabbing more spaghetti. Yeah. It was like 5-minute dinner.
Yeah. No, it was. I ate many dinners over at their house, and just my whole high school career was me and Zach just rolling around in the K5 Blazer with the top down, smoking cigs, listening to Pantera. And it's funny. This is a kind of just interesting story for Zach. Like when it was time for me to move to college, like my parents were like, "All right, well, good luck."
Yeah.
Like, and Zach goes, "Well, I'll move you." So Zach moved me to school.
No kidding.
Yeah. I was like, "Hey, I got to be there 2-3 weeks early before school starts for football." And he's like, "All right, let's go, man." So we packed his Blazer and my truck up, and he moved me to school.
That's awesome.
So
that's a friend right there.
Yeah, he is, man.
Cool.
Well, okay. So you started at Baker Commercial. But how long were you there?
Short period of time.
Yeah.
I want to say, I can't even remember now, but like a year.
Yeah.
Went to Terran, which is no longer around. The owner of that, I think he just got bored. He had a lot of money, and he just kind of wanted to shut it down. It wasn't fun for him anymore. But that was a fun get. That's where I really cut my teeth. I was there for like 3.5 years, and we were working on Sun Microsystem stuff. We were working on Siemens stuff. I was flying. I was 26, flying all over the country, touring big corporate guys through. I did deals literally from San Diego to like Hartford, Connecticut in those 3 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that was back when you had to take pictures of the buildings and record the numbers on the sign, and then go back and tape the pictures into your market survey. It wasn't like quick and easy CoStar pull. It was a lot of work, but that was fun.
So how long were you at Terran? 3 years?
3.5 years, maybe.
3.5 years.
Yeah.
And then
they just shut it down. It wasn't like we didn't go out of business or anything. It was just kind of like, hey, you guys go find another job. I'm kind of tired.
Yeah.
And so I went to Crow from there. I interviewed with a bunch of different companies, and Crow was kind of my end all be all. Like I wanted to be there. It was the most prestigious.
Yeah.
But I was only at Crow for a year.
Yeah.
And
what were you doing at Crow since
tenant rep?
Oh, okay.
Office tenant rep.
Okay, that's right. They really don't do broker. I mean, I guess with the partnership of CBRE, they don't really do brokerage now. Trammell Crow. So, but back then,
before CB bought that division, and and at that point, Crow had only been doing tenant rep for like maybe 3 or 4 years. It was kind of a brand new division for them. So it was fun. I mean, I learned a lot. Obviously, big publicly traded company at the time, and a lot of people went through Crow and started their own companies. But I always say this, that I was too stupid to know that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there going, okay, I got 4.5, 5 years experience. Like, I can start my own gig.
Yeah.
Like, who can't do this? And I had a lot to learn.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any mentors that I could like suck knowledge from. So it was kind of hard knocks.
Do you think it was more what to learn about operating a company or being a broker?
Oh, probably operating a company. Yeah.
That's a big shift.
Yeah.
It's there's a book called The E-Myth, The Entrepreneurial Myth, and he gives this example of how a guy works in a machine shop, really good at machining parts, decides to start his own company. And he's not successful because he doesn't know how to run a company versus machine parts all day
Still
long.
really good at machine parts. But
Yeah.
To the whole world out there, I'm not very good at running my company, which is why I have other people that are doing some of that stuff. I mean, I'm still good at.
But doesn't that make you good at running your company? To acknowledge that,
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
you have to. Yes.
It's I think some of the biggest mistakes I make sometimes are putting my foot in my opinion, and getting involved, and not just letting things run their course with my employees.
So, kind of funny. I'll shout out to my buddy Gabe, who's in my EO forum, but I've got 3 offices now, and one's in Fort Worth, and the Fort Worth office. The last 2.5 years been rough on brokerage, so we're way down there. But I mean, my Fort Worth office, I go in there once a month. If they need me, they'll call me. I don't mess with it at all. It just runs smooth as silk.
Yeah,
profitable. All the guys are great. My Dallas office, I'm in there, 2, 3, 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, always having issues there. And my buddy Gabe's like, does that tell you something?
Yeah.
So you're in Dallas and it doesn't do good, and you're not in Fort Worth and it does good. Maybe you should, just stay out of the office.
Yeah.
Let it run.
I think the draw for an owner, the drawback in is when one thing gets done the way differently you wouldn't have done it. You're like, oh,
can't do that. Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
I think you got to just accept a little level of that.
Yeah.
Because people do things differently, you know what I mean? And it's tough to, but I think for scalability wise, you have to kind of get out of it. I mean, look at,
You have to, and you really have to get out of, or I should say, I really have to get out of the accounting side, the finance side.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it. I don't like it. I'll mess it up. So even though I'll see reports that I don't like, that I'm like, hey, I wouldn't have done it that way, you gotta let people that are better than you at whatever it is do that,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I'm okay delegating. But there's still that piece where you come in and go, no, why'd you do it that way?
Yeah.
You
It's
got to get out of your own way.
You got to get out of your own way. So you start Dominus. Was Zach your first employee?
Zach was. Yeah. Zach was. And then my second employee was our next door neighbor's junior in high school daughter who became our kind of semi-receptionist when we finally got office space. But yeah, it was cool.
So you start Dominus. What year was this?
2001.
Okay.
So
great year to start.
So I actually, I'll be quite honest. I got fired from Trammell Crow.
Okay.
But I got fired because I was a super smart ass and really upset with some of the stuff that was going on there. And I knew when I said what I said, I knew I was going to
get axed.
Yeah.
Probably a little too corporate for you there.
You'd think? Yeah. Well, same thing at Baker. I mean, if you loosened your tie on a Friday afternoon, he would come in and do the little that to your neck, necktie. But so we had the .com meltdown in early 2001, and I'd been riding pretty high on that. I mean, I had a national account that I was traveling all over the United States, opening up. It was called localview.com, and we were open. And it was fun, man. We'd go to Boston, we'd go out and party, hit the best restaurant, and then tour space the next day. The CEO and I had gotten to be buddies. But so the .com bust happens, and I wasn't very happy at Crow at the time. I mean, they're just different, like you said, it's just too corporate for me.
Yeah.
And then we had September 11th, same year, right? And then a couple weeks after that was when Kinko's was moving to their headquarters to Dallas. And I was trying to get involved in that to help the team. And they didn't want me to get involved. And then we lost that account to Stahlback.
Yeah.
And I said something super smart ass to my manager. And he said, why don't we go sit in the conference room? I said, okay, you want me to bring my deal list and my contract with me? He's like, yeah, that'd be a good idea. So it was kind of, I knew I was out the door.
It's okay.
But
it
worked out good.
So, okay. So you start Dominus. Did you, when you walked out the door that day, were you like, okay, I just need to go start my own thing? Or were you like maybe calling and seeing if, maybe I'll go here? Or
a little shout out to my wife, because she basically said, hey, I called her. She was living in California at the time, finishing her master's degree. And I called her up and was like, hey, this is what happened. I just got fired. She's like, you didn't get fired. You quit, And secondly, you've always wanted to start your own company. So go get a printer, go get a laptop and get after it. So it was really her push. I mean, in the back of my mind, I wanted to, but it was her just going, just go start your own company. So,
man, the importance of having a spouse that can support you on things like that is, and props to her for moving to the hood with you.
Yeah, baby. We were down there before it was cool.
Oh my god!
And all my real estate guys are like, why aren't you in Highland Park? I'm like, well,
it's not
one. I couldn't afford it, and
it's just no.
That was a fun time.
Tell the story about that, because your house down there, you were in the hood of Oak Cliff.
Yeah, we were in the hood.
So what was like, hey, let's move to the hood?
Well, it was weird. I'd never been down there. All I knew about it was that's where the gangs and drugs and everything bad was.
Yeah.
And Dana got stuck. Dana called me. We didn't have cell phones, so she stops at a payphone. She's like, hey, I'm in this place called Oak Cliff, and I'm kind of lost, and it's getting dark on a Saturday night, and I'm like, oh my God, call 911, find a police officer now.
Yeah.
And literally she asked a police officer to like tell her how to, get out. But I mean, it wasn't as bad as what we thought it was. But so she talked about all the beautiful homes down there. And I went, you got to be kidding me. And she's like, no, it's really incredible. And we had just gotten back from upstate New York where her cousin had redone a house from like the late 1700s, like meticulously took every brick off the fireplace and labeled where it went and soaked them and like crazy rehab.
Yeah.
So we were just out for a drive and just a weekend drive. We're like, hey, let's go check out some of the cool old houses. And so we went to Lakewood, that area. We went to Oak Cliff. And we saw this really beautiful home that had a sign that said rent to own. We didn't have any money.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's call them up. And it was a foreclosure. And we ended up getting a, really good deal on it. We paid $79,000 for the house.
Oh my gosh.
And then we sold it in 2016 for $600,000.
Yeah.
And, but we lived through a lot of gunshots in the middle of the night.
Yeah, didn't you have a couple rip through the house?
There was a big gang war early on, like 2003 maybe.
Yeah.
And bullets were flying, man. And I was like, okay, we're out of here. Let's go to Coppell or Plano or South Lake but Dana loved the neighborhood and she wasn't going to let anybody push her out. So we did a lot down there. We got the Stevie Ray Vaughan Park rededicated or whatever. We got sidewalks in on all those streets in our neighborhood. We had a historic district overlay. That was all Dana. She was doing it.
So like, tell me the dynamic of like you rolling up in your suit at the end of the day, like at 6:00, getting out of your car and waving to your neighbor. Like what? Like who's your neighbors down there?
So our neighbors are still very close friends of ours.
Yeah,
it's interesting. But I'll tell you a funny story. So Dana was still in California. She'd come down to see the house, and the house had. It was a gorgeous house, but we had to put a ton of money into it, and everything was wrong with it, like the sewer. We had to redo the sewer lines and electrical and all that stuff, but because it was built in 1917. But our next door neighbor, Luis, and his wife and family became really close friends of ours. Hell, you probably met him.
Yeah.
We had a detached garage in the back, and so I parked in the garage, and I'm walking from the garage to my back deck to go in the backyard, and Dana's not there. We'd been there a couple of weeks maybe, and there's this just horrific loud gunshot, 20 feet from me. And I hit the deck and I'm like crawling into the house and I'm ripping my suit on the wood deck and everything. And I get to I didn't even have any pistols. I had a shotgun for dove hunting. And I roll in combat style and grab the shotgun out from underneath my bed and I'm laying there. Well, I never knew what happened. Yeah. Fast forward 10 years later, 8 years later, and Louise and I are sitting on the front porch having a beer, and he goes, "Hey man, I got to tell you something." He said, "Remember that time you dropped it?" He totally did it on purpose. He shot his gun up in the air to scare the white guy neighbor that just moved in.
Oh, that's funny. That's a little hazing.
Man, it was hazing.
That's what hazing's like in Oak Cliff, people.
Absolutely, yeah. There you go. There's your initiation.
Yeah. Well, so when did you move out of your Oak Cliff house?
We 2016.
Okay.
So we were there for 15 years.
Yeah, you were there for a while. So,
and it changed obviously a ton.
Yeah.
From that time. That's when Bishop Arts started doing valet, and we couldn't get into Hattie's.
Yeah,
because they were too packed. I was like, it's gone beyond our.
This is not going to be hood enough anymore. Yeah, if I try to haze anybody with a gunshot coming in, I'm going to get in trouble.
I'm going to get arrested now.
Yeah, these people will call the cops.
Come on, man.
That's stupid.
Let's take it back to the good old days when the bullets were flying. Yeah.
So is that when you moved down to
Glenrose?
Glenrose?
Yeah. I grew up on a farm. Dana grew up in a real small town, and they had a farm in upstate New York, and so we weren't really city folks anyways, and so we'd kind of been looking for some land, and that was almost as spur of the moment as Oak Cliff was. Yeah. We went down there on a weekend to take the kids to Dinosaur Valley, and we happened to look up a couple of houses for sale just to check it out, and then we found the place that we're at, it's got 2 fishing ponds and a shop and all. I mean, it's just perfect for the kids.
Yeah,
lots of we've got about 40 acres down there, and they get to roll around on their 4-wheelers, and
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great.
My oldest daughter, who's now 21, almost 22, she threw a graduation party with like 250 kids there. We had plenty of room, you know. Spread out. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so when you're starting Dominus, like, what was your plan? What was your vision for Dominus like?
You know, I really didn't you hear a lot of people that talk about, hey, I sat down and I wrote out this whole plan and I had all these goals and whatever. And I really didn't. I mean, I looked at it like, there wasn't so when I went to Crow, I just thought the deals would roll in because I was, who are you with? Trammell Crow. Oh, here.
Yeah.
We need X amount of space, or we need to go buy this building. But I didn't get that. Obviously, that was naive. But I looked at it and went, I always say, watch Hogan's Heroes reruns. That's gotten old now after 25 years of saying it. But, I could work out of my house, spend a lot of time with my family, and still make, 150 grand.
Yeah.
And that's more money than I ever thought I would make in my life. And I was like, easy. So I really didn't have a plan. And then it just kind of started growing. We started picking up more clients and I started getting busy. So I brought on, Zach came on, and then I brought on a couple other guys, and it was purely tenant rep.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, so I really never, we obviously have a business plan now, and we're working through where we're going and what's the life of the company. And, you always hear in the entrepreneurial circles, if you're not working on an exit strategy, then it's just a hobby. Yeah. And so we have that. The good news is in commercial real estate, you can have a bunch of exits, right? Like you have these serial entrepreneurs. We are serial entrepreneurs because every building we buy is its own business.
It's a business. Yeah.
It's its own business. So, but back then I really didn't, and it just kind of started growing. And then I would say around, maybe 2007, somewhere in there, I started looking at the leasing and management side as opposed to just doing tenant rep. I mean, we weren't doing any investment sales. We weren't doing anything. It was just tenant rep.
Yeah.
And but I started going to tour these buildings, and you got leasing agents that don't even show up, or the doors aren't unlocked, or you walk into the lobby and you go, hey, you might have wanted, you probably should have swept up those cockroaches before I brought a, full floor tenant through the building. And so that's when we started, and we really haven't to this day. It's mostly been just relationships, or you get a big need. But that's when I was like, hey, we could get into management and leasing and do a hell of a lot better job than a lot of these companies. And so then it kind of morphed into that. And then we did our first equity deal in 2012.
Yeah.
And all the deals that we've done have been just relationship deals where, somebody knows me and they go, hey, this is a building you really want to look at. I mean, it's not us necessarily scouring the market. Yeah. It's just super opportunistic, if it comes along and it's the right deal and we know we can do a good job for our investors and ourselves, and
you'll execute on it.
Yeah.
No, that's I like your point about how each building is its own business. And there's probably always everything you've probably ever bought is probably some kind of value add component to it, right? And so there's such a strategy going through it. It's funny. We literally went building by building yesterday in our portfolio. And we're like, is the business plan executed? Yes. Should we sell it? And we looked at what was return on equity. What's the return on our equity right now? Well, when you look at what our equity is after we've executed the business plan, it's pretty ass.
Yeah.
So to sell it makes the most sense. So it made us go, okay, someone wants to buy that and pay this number, they're going to own it. Someone wants to buy that, they're going to own it. This one needs to sit in the oven for a little longer. One, we'll probably keep this one for a while. It's got some special things about it. But, this is funny too. We had our annual investor call this week, and one of my investors, he knows this, and he's just razzing me, but he goes, hey man, I'm in couple deals that don't have distributions yet. I go, welcome to value add.
Yeah.
He goes,
You get your distribution in 5 years when we sell.
yeah. He goes, well, as long as it's not value had. And I was like, I thought that's pretty good.
That's a good one. I like that. Value had.
Yeah. And he's it's funny. I was doing the biggest deal I ever done in this investor. He's getting in with me the first time, and guy's smart as shit. He has a bachelor's in mathematics from Notre Dame, has his master's from Wharton, and he's a big check writer too. So
there you go.
He's got the magnifying glass out, just going through all my stuff, and he called me out on. He goes, this doesn't make any sense right here, and I just looked down and I go, yeah, I'm wrong.
Yeah. Hey,
you know what? He was fine
with
that, and then he cut me $1 million check for a deal. So he was like, okay, cool. So he's actually become a really good friend. And honestly, now when I have like a new type deck or anything, I just send it to him first. I go, will you just rip this apart because I don't want to hear about it.
Fix all my errors, so I can send it to other people.
Yeah. So
that's cool. But
being really opportunistic. That's kind of how we all started, right? Like that's how Jeff started buying buildings. It's just, it'd be a situation where someone would kind of whiff on something. You'd be like, you should have done that. We'll do it, and so.
Well, I mean, it's not like we can compete with, KKRs of the world.
No.
So you gotta look for the stuff that they either don't know about or too much work to put in for them.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, it's, and man, it's a lot of work, buying a building and taking it through the life cycle, it's,
and a lot of stress that people don't realize that. I mean, you have, we bought a building in Las Colinas a couple of years ago, and 2 of our largest tenants moved out. And when we did the tenant interviews, they were staying for the whole time.
Yeah.
Now we're going to be fine. That's still going to be a really good deal, But
yeah, that puckers you up.
Especially right in today, that was a year ago kind of, we found out they were moving out, and a year ago leasing was nothing like it is right now. So we were nervous.
Office leasing, is it coming back?
Man, I haven't really done a full market, but I mean, for the buildings that we have,
activity's up.
It's up 10x over a year ago.
Yeah.
I mean, we were seeing a tour a month, and now we're seeing 2 or 3, 4 tours a week.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I really felt office was going to, I didn't feel like office was going to come out of it. So I had an opinion, and here's what I thought. I said, you don't fully know the state of office yet because everybody that signed a 10-year multiple floor plate lease before COVID hasn't rolled yet. And are they going to renew multiple floor plates? If they had 5 floor plates, they might just renew 2 of them.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I do think I think Trump is helping office. He's just like, everybody get back to work.
Yeah.
And then I think people realize that work from home, it works for people doing repetitive tasks all day long. Like someone's doing accounts payable all day long.
100%.
Sure. You want to jump in a room and make a real estate deal. It ain't happening on a Teams call. And it's just like that. You see that Jamie Dimon? Mm-hmm. Someone clipped Jamie Dimon talking about people working from home.
Oh.
And he was like, you motherfuckers. He's like, some of y'all are over there side texting and all this bullshit. And he went off. But I mean, everything he said was 100% accurate.
Oh, I terminated 2 employees that had that each had full-time jobs outside of my company.
Yeah.
They were at home, getting paid by me, working a full-time job.
Oh, I'll totally believe it.
And one guy was a broker.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying him a salary. I had him on a draw. He was doing Uber driving, so he couldn't come in the office because of COVID. Right, he was too nervous to get COVID, but he's driving people around in his Uber vehicle. So, I think there was a couple things that popped up right up front. Culture is so important for us.
Yeah,
right, having a
100%.
good place to work, being family, helping each other out when you need help. Like we don't have disagreements at the office. We really don't. I mean, it's just a good group of people doing the right thing and enjoying your work. And it should be because, I get to spend a couple hours in the evening with my kids.
Yeah.
And I have to spend 8 or 9 hours with, my coworkers. So, but it's really hard to have a culture with people that are working from home. It's really hard to build that team.
Yeah.
It's really hard to onboard. I mean, it's impossible to onboard.
Yeah.
I'll give you another good example. When you're on a Zoom call, let's say we've got a new broker and you and I keep talking about TI,
mm-hmm.
and the dude doesn't know what TI means. He's not going to ask it on a Zoom call because he doesn't want to look like an idiot in front of 20 people on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
But if you were in a conference room, he might grab you on the way out of the conference room and go, "Hey man, it's kind of embarrassing. You guys using it a lot, but or it's like, I don't know, if I'm not around you, I don't know what you don't know."
Yeah.
So when I'm walking through the office and I hear somebody on a call and they're saying something and I realize, excuse me, they're going the wrong direction.
Yeah.
I jump right in, or I'll grab a notepad and start writing, like, here, say this, this,
Yeah.
And you just can't do it. So I had a very opposite opinion than you did about office.
Yeah. Well, I'd always said, the guys that are buying into office right now are probably going to be right, but we just don't do it. So,
well, I couldn't. I mean, I would have bought a bunch. I would have been a bunch of office already, but I couldn't find any banks or LPs. I mean, I had 2 or 3 deals that I was, could have closed on and just couldn't find the funds.
Yeah.
But my view was always, okay, you got 1,300 people a day moving to Texas.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the number. You've got Class C buildings getting torn down for industrial or for multifamily or whatever. I mean, just that old colonial looking building on Midway got torn down, and that was like 250,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So you're losing, and you've got big office buildings downtown being converted to residential, right?
Yeah.
So you're losing all this office space. At the same time, nobody's building office, period. Right. Like maybe a one-off Jerry Jones deal at the Star, or, a build-to-suit for Christus Health or something like that.
Yeah, but like Jerry Jones isn't building the building. The tower he built in there, a buddy of mine's company was the lead tenant. They took 50,000 feet to kick the. I mean, they're not doing it without that.
No, and I've talked to a bunch of the large architecture firms, and they're not doing anything with office right now. So if they started today, it's 2 years before they open up.
Yeah.
So if you weren't well underway in construction when COVID hit, the banks pulled. I mean, they stopped it, right?
Yeah.
And so let's call it 2021 was the last, real delivery of any kind of spec or, and so it's going to be 2027 before any of it kicks back in the pipeline. That's if they start today.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have a shortage.
So on the activity now that you're seeing on office leasing, is it more, is it smaller kind of companies, or is it?
It was.
Yeah.
It was smaller companies. Now we're seeing, I mean, we've got on our tracking sheet, we've probably got 20 tenants that have either inquired, gotten proposals, or are in leases or close to it. Mm-hmm. 3 or 4 of those are under 5,000 square feet.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Oh, we just signed a lease with one for like 8,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. All the rest of them are full floors or 170,000 square feet, 200,000 square feet. And that was not active at all a year ago.
Yeah.
So I think it's coming back around. And the other thing that's happening is we had a bunch of sublease space, right? Mm-hmm. And those companies have taken it off the sublease market and not just recently, but like in the last, 2 years, they took it off the sublease market and are reusing it now.
Oh, that's good.
So we'll see. I mean, I do know that there was some companies, and there's a lot of companies out there that probably downsized and used a smaller footprint and let a certain amount of people work from home. Mm-hmm. But we're also in Texas, and our economy keeps growing, and we keep adding jobs, and they've got to, those that aren't working from home have to work somewhere. And so,
have you seen? Okay, I feel like, to your point of Dallas growing by 1,300 people a day.
Yeah.
Or is it a day?
Texas, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Texas. Like, I think of somewhere like Dallas now is turning into Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, getting anywhere. Like when we leased this building, it was a 25-minute drive from my house in Prosper. It's now 40 to 50 minutes, just depending on what's going on, you know? Are you seeing companies maybe look at like a footprint across a metroplex and saying, hey, maybe we don't need, 50,000 feet right here. Maybe we need 10 on this side of town, 10 on this side of town, and kind of create these satellites where you kind of...
That's interesting. I have not, but that doesn't mean that that's not going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, think about when I was at Baker Commercial, Craig Hall broke ground on his first office building. This is how old I am, by the way. broke ground on his first office building on not the tollway. It was the parkway because there wasn't a tollway. And it was... Maybe it was 4 lanes, but I mean, 121, none of that was there.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the guys at Baker was leaving Baker to go up and lease that office building. And actually, not Craig Hall's, but Granite had started theirs too, right at the same time. And he said he was going to go up and lease space at Granite, office park. And I said, where's that? And he's like, North Dallas Parkway and 121. I'm like, that's like Oklahoma or Denison. Where is that? And I remember shaking my head and kind of laughing and going, good luck getting companies to go up there. So I missed the boat on that one for sure because that's crazy.
I call my house in Prosper the best real estate deal I ever meant to make.
Yeah.
And I remember when I put my lot under contract, Ryan Boozer told me, he goes, you're going to screw your production up moving that far away. He was really concerned for me. And I was like, man, I'll figure it out. And he's like, man, you're going to be, he didn't like, he was really against me on it. And it's funny. I remember the night he was leaving Mercer Company, I was sitting in his office and he was going to stream. And I go, well, I have to drive to downtown and go up 2 elevators.
Right? Yeah, way worse.
I was like, our drives might be pretty comparable. So, but everybody, when I bought my house, everybody's like, you live in Oklahoma?
Yeah.
And, and now it's...
Well, it's funny, people are like, Glenrose, you commute in from Glenrose every day? And obviously not every day, but it's an hour and 15 minutes to my office.
I mean...
and there's people in Frisco driving to downtown that takes close to that, right?
Well, that's what... I mean, I had an office in Mercer Company and I was like, forget it. This is an hour and a half drive for me now. I was like, I'm good. Like, give my office to somebody.
And the traffic, it's. I don't mind doing an hour and a half drive if I'm doing 70.
Yeah.
And, my hair's blowing in the wind.
Yeah.
Not really, but.
Very aerodynamic.
Yeah, we are. But just sitting in that stop and go, that just
brutal.
Drives me nuts.
Yeah. It's, my hack was, that's when I hired a driver full time.
Do you still have that?
Still have them.
And Jeff did that too, right?
He did it when he was living in Graham. He was
in Graham.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you where he was.
Graham. And
that's 2 hours probably.
2 hours. Yeah. So, but I still have them.
That's great.
I'm not brokering as much, so I'm not like out moving around as much. But I mean, but like there's there's tons of stuff that needs to be done that, he'll go check vacant buildings once a week. Just walk them, make sure no one's got into them, and just, some tenants still refuse to pay by a portal. So just go grab their check. And, so there's a lot, it was great back in the, you remember when you used to like actually go to your client's office and get leases and checks.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't even happen anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
And, it's funny. Half the time I get an invoice now for a commission, I'm like, I don't even know if we've been paid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but I'd always have them go grab leases, go drop them off, and to the landlord, get signatures, go disperse them. So there's always a lot of tasks to kind of fill in.
Yeah.
And but that's probably one of the best ROIs I think I've ever invested in.
I could see me doing that at some. I love to drive, but. Man, the amount of work I can get in the back, done in the back of the car in an hour, just being on my laptop and on the phone. I mean, I'm on the phone anyways. That's the other thing. It's like when we lived in town, I'd get home and I'd still be on the phone, on a business phone. And it drove Dana nuts, right? She's like, come inside and be with the kids. I'm like, okay, just give me a few minutes. Well, now, fast forward 15 years later, add an hour to my commute, and I'm still on the phone when I get to the house. So, I mean, I get on, I'll do 3 or 4 calls, on my way in every morning. So I'm getting stuff done.
Well, you got the Chisholm Trail Parkway, doesn't it? You take that?
Depends. It'll either route me that way or all the way around 67. So.
Yeah. Well, it's with the amount of connectivity we have now, I don't think it's that big of a deal. No. I mean, to your point, I never finish all my calls on the way back when it's 45 minutes. You're sitting in the parking lot.
It's funny too, because you talk about working from home. I could probably work from home better than anybody else in the office, right? I need those guys in there collaborating and the assistants in there helping them with the, market surveys and all the different things we do.
Yeah.
But I could actually probably work from home because I'm not doing that stuff anymore, right? I'm not really selling anymore. I mean, about the only sales stuff I do anymore is just trying to get good investors.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of bad investors.
Oh, there is, man. It's they're out there. Well, okay. Here's something I always like to ask on this. What was kind of your craziest cold call situation, or most awkward call, or funniest call, or
man?
You got a dozen of them.
Yeah, I got a dozen.
So give us a couple.
I'll give you a couple. Yeah. One of my coolest ones was, I don't know, I'd probably 3 years with the company, maybe 2. And I had this airport deal that I wanted to do. And the only group that I could think of that would even look at it in my, I didn't know anybody. I was, very small company, but was Ross Perot.
Yeah.
And so I called him up, and and of course his assistant answers, and I'm like, "Is Ross in?" It's Steve. And she's like, "Steve who?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." Anyways, long story short, I said, "Hey, I've got this deal I'm not protected on. I think it's right up your alley. I want, and she said, "Well, send him an email." Gave me his email, and she said, he'll call you. And I, yeah, right. So I was at the office. It was Wednesday night, and it was like, it was dark, so 7:30, 8, whatever time. Yeah. And my phone rings, and it says private or whatever, right? I pick it up, and this guy goes, "Is this Steve?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Are you still at the office?" I said, "Yeah, who's this?" He goes, "It's Ross Perot." And I hung up on him immediately because I'd told a couple of people, like Trey Anderson, for example, that I'd made that call. And so I was sure that they were
fucking with you.
Yeah, totally. So phone rings again. It says, "Steve, we got disconnected. This is Ross Perot." I'm like, "You're full of shit." He goes, "No, it is." Well, an hour and a half later, we get off the phone. We talked aviation the whole time. So I've got my pilot's license. And at the time I had a plane. And he says, "What are you doing next Wednesday afternoon?" And when Ross Perot Jr. asks you that, you have nothing. Your calendar's
whatever
clear.
You're doing.
And so I got to go out to Alliance and fly on his biplane, his 1946, I think, or 42 Stearman biplane. Put the whole Snoopy mask or Snoopy hat on and the goggles.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
Oh, that was
awesome. Yeah, we did a little bit of aerobatics. He had me stay on the speedway to try and stay on the speedway. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's cool.
I actually called Trump way before Trump was who Trump is now. I called him in 2001, right after I started my company. I thought, man, Trump tenant rep sounds really good. You know, I mean, maybe I can start that division for him.
Yeah.
And I called him and left him a couple of voicemails, and then I think maybe I sent him an email. Or maybe I sent him a letter. Anyways, I got a letter back. I still have it. I got a letter back. Thank you so much for your interest in the Trump organization. We wish you so much success with your business. Da, 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 da. Last paragraph was, if you use the Trump name in any marketing, is this legal disclaimer? But he signed it. It was his signature. So that was kind of crazy.
That's kind of a good idea, though. Trump tenant rep.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you would know real quick who your clients are and who they aren't.
100%. Yeah, he's got to be doing something like. I mean,
yeah, sure.
The amount of businesses he's somehow involved in. But
yeah,
that was kind of crazy. Was getting that letter back from him. That said, Hey, you're great. Thanks for calling. Don't you ever mess with our brand.
It's funny is we discussed as soon as he got elected, we on our little shop talk episode we do every week, me and Will, we always track the U.S. debt. How much did it go up last week?
Right.
And we're like, hey, we're going to start writing a letter every week to Trump about, hey, the debt went up this much and, what are we doing about it? But Doge immediately started. And so I don't have a reason to write the letter because actually this week was the first time it was a net positive of what Doge had saved. There's a Doge clock and a debt clock, and we're finally in caloric deficit.
Really?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if it's making an impact.
So Doge was saving around $26 billion a week, and the debt clips off around $29 billion a week. But this week, I think we had a $3 billion caloric deficit is what we call it. So.
We're so, not to get super political, but I was thinking about it on the way in this morning because of the stock market, right? Market tanked.
Yeah, we were just watching
today.
It's just crashing.
And we are so, what's the word? We're just so weak or shallow or whatever. We can't take any, you think about look what's going on in Ukraine and Russia and look what happens in the Middle East. And we can't even stop spending money on whatever stupid thing we are so that our great grandkids still have a country.
Yeah.
It's crazy. We are very, it's just what.
Very soft.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Very soft. And it's what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
You start having other countries come marching in here and taking us over or whatever might happen if we can't pay our bills or who knows. And it's kind of like during the freeze we had a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I had a whole bunch of people text me hey, if the electricity doesn't come back on soon or the heat or whatever, we're gonna head out to your place. I'm like, no, that's a very short list and you are not on it.
No, it's well, I think, just on the state of those things that they're doing, I think you're in a situation where they're viewing it as a takeover of a company that was failing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just gotta kind of crash it you just got to go rebuild it. It's
there's going to be pain.
Well, it's imagine, what do they say when they take people into the Marines? If they just sent the Marines out to fight, as soon as you got there, day one, it'd be a total mess, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, hey, we're going to break you down to the smallest denominator and build you all back up. And I feel that's kind of what's happening right now. It's hey, you know what? We're probably going to go into a recession for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Let's grade you on the body of work at the end of 4 years.
Well, what happens to a family when they lose their job? They cut their spending.
Yeah.
They get real.
Yeah.
They make some tough decisions. They sell their third car or their second car. Those are all realities that we have to deal with, but we have a government that doesn't have any boundaries whatsoever. They can spend whatever they want.
Yeah.
They can, and I think it's going to be painful, but I think that if we don't do it, who?
Yeah.
If we don't go through that pain, who?
Yeah.
And I don't want my kids to go through that.
Yeah.
And my kids, my oldest is 21 now, crazy enough, but she's an adult, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not an economist, so I have no idea what happens if our debt keeps going up and we can't pay our
It has to come home sometime, right? It has to come.
You would think so.
To bring itself home sometime. So, well, here's something else I like to ask. What's kind of the most unique deal you've ever pulled off?
Probably the most unique and painful deal I've ever pulled off.
They usually go hand in hand.
Yeah, right. Was and I have to be careful that I don't say anything that's under an NDA, but I used to drive by the old Texas State. I went to UD.
Yep.
So we used to get with our student IDs, we could go there at halftime at every game. So we'd watch the first half in the apartments and then run across the street to. So, and I'm a huge Cowboys fan, as you know.
Sure.
And so grew up all around that area. They take the stadium down, and there's all this land right in the center of the Metroplex.
It's the best piece of real estate in the Metroplex.
Just unbelievable. So Central Freight owned a large 175-acre site, and the University of Dallas owned some other land. And I pulled those things together and got them under contract. I worked on that deal for 17 years from start to finish.
Oh my gosh.
But and the funny thing, I told this story yesterday, but when I got the Central Freight site, we negotiated the whole deal. We're about to put it under contract. I send the contract to the seller to sign. And the guy calls me back. They were out of Arizona, and they called me back, and they said, we need proof of funds. Well, I was probably sitting on $1,500 at the time, and I'm like, well, I said, my investors, of which I didn't have any yet, but I said, my investors, they're very private. They're not going to say. So, well, he's not going to sign this unless you show some kind of proof that you can close. So I told him, I said, okay, how about this? I said, how about I get a letter from a private banker that says that one of my investors has enough money in his checking account to close cash tomorrow.
Yeah.
And he was like, done. That'll work. I said, okay, I'll get you the letter. So I hang up the phone and I start, punching myself in the head. Like, what was I thinking? I don't know anybody, and so I'm going through my Rolodex trying to find somebody that would at least just let a banker do that. And I get the little email ding, and there's the signed contract. So I signed it and sent it to title.
Okay.
They never asked for it. They never, I guess, me telling him that, he told the seller. So the seller was like, okay, he's good then. So we pulled all that together. We had a development that was called Village Walk, Texas, and it was going to be a real big mixed use deal. And then a company out of Las Vegas that you might have heard about in the news lately came and bought that property in July of 2023.
Oh.
So we closed on it in 2015. We did the final closing in 2015, and it sold in 2023.
Wow.
And I'd started on it in 2004 or something like that.
I had no idea you did that deal.
Yeah.
That's some big swinging dick right there.
It was a lot. It was a great learning experience. I mean, we had to do a ton of environmental cleanup. I mean, that site in the 50s was a gun range. There's all sorts of different uses out there. Just the Central Freight itself. So there was a lot of asbestos out there that we had to clean up.
Sure.
We had to do the monitoring wells for TCEQ. We had to do a economic impact study that was like 70 pages long. I mean, it was a really cool deal, and then just dealing with all the politics around it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the most unique for sure.
That's a big one. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
I would say you haven't done your biggest deal yet, but maybe you.
I don't know, man.
You got one rolling right now. I know that.
Yeah, we got a couple rolling. We've been on the edge. It's kind of fun, I'm definitely an elephant hunter.
Yeah,
and it's cost me probably a lot of money over my career.
Yeah,
hit those singles and doubles all day long, and
Yeah.
But I mean, we've had some deals teed up that got really close that were big. We had one that was about $1.6 billion. That was a big multifamily portfolio.
Yeah.
And we had our commission agreement signed and everything. And we're like, oh yeah, I mean, can't spend it until you get it. But but we, I was looking forward to the, new airplane or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we're working some pretty decent industrial deals now. We've flirted with a lot of big deals.
Yeah.
They're fun. I mean, it's just, the odds of hitting one of those is probably 1 in 100 as opposed to maybe 1 in 20 with a,
more fairway deal,
smaller
deal.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. You might have just won the prize for best unique deal being pulled off on the podcast.
Well, I couldn't understand. I drove by it every day.
Yeah.
Every single day when I lived in Valley Ranch for a long time. And I'm going, why isn't anybody buying this dirt? It looks like the best dirt on the planet to me. Like you take an aerial of Dallas and it's like just this giant hole.
Yeah.
You've got all the freeways around it. The infrastructure is there. So, and now the Trinity's cool,
Yeah.
Used to be the Trinity smelled really bad and you just wanted to hide it.
Yeah.
And now it's like,
it's fine.
Beautification. I still don't think I'd eat a fish out of it, but
no, probably not.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. What, was there ever a specific setback or failure that, taught you an important lesson that you maybe to learn from?
Like every day. Like every day. I think the biggest thing for me is me, I've got a big heart and I trust people and I grew up in a very small town. And so coming here and I'm trying to continue to have that belief in people.
Yeah.
Right. And I still do. But, there are people out there in this business and they don't care. They are there to get you.
Yeah.
There's the greed and I'm just very open, like with my investors or clients or even my team. It's like, hey, here's who we are. Here's what we do. I don't walk around with an ego and try to and so I think you have deals that can change your life and your family's lives, and you get screwed out of it.
Yeah,
that's tough. And so I've gotten hard. It still happens to me. It shouldn't, but it still does. But I've gotten harder. Where now I'm like, really doing due diligence on my. I used to just think that they looked at me and tried to, do my background, searches and my reputation. But now I'm trying to do the same with my investors because, I've had some really good deals go sideways where a lot of people made money.
Yeah.
And we did a deal. We did a big lease deal, a couple 100,000 square feet in a building that probably was not going to make it.
Yeah.
With this guy out in New York. And I took it. I didn't really have control of the tenant.
Yeah.
But I took it to him going, hey, this could be really good for you. They're not represented, but I know about them and I have a relationship here and I married the two and he paid us a point. And had I negotiated that prior to, I probably could have gotten him to pay me 10% of the deal. It saved I don't know how much money he made on the deal, but so I think that's the biggest and saddest lesson is, people, when you make your investors, and I'm saying this is a broad stroke, so I know there's a lot of good people out there, but you make your investors a ton of money, and they don't come and pat you on the back and give you a hug.
They don't.
If you lose their money,
they're
going to kick your ass.
They're going to take your name through the mud.
Yeah, and so it's like what I tell my investors is, hey, if I have a problem with one of the deals, you're going to be the second person to know, and then I want you to get your butt in an airplane and come sit down with me and let's figure out, help me figure out, because I trust that these guys are smart guys.
Yeah.
And if things are going good, I'm just going to send you a monthly report and I expect you to take me to dinner.
You bring up a very good point because I will say this, I have ripped some incredible returns for people.
Yeah.
And they don't even call and say thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when's the next one?
Right.
I'm sorry. Do I owe you something?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I actually had a group. So we just did a deal with, it just hit the paper the other day. It didn't get broadly published, but we cut a deal with a private equity group out of Ireland that does blockchain and tokenization of real estate. And so super excited about it, but I'm talking to the CEO, hundreds of millions of dollars plus whatever. And he said, you probably think you need us more than we need you, but we need you more than you need us. And I went, I've never had an investor tell me that. And he said, look, there's so much powder on the sidelines. There's so much money in the world now looking for a place to put it.
Yeah.
We need you bringing us deals and being a good operator more than you need us for our cash, because there's more cash out there than there are deals.
Yeah.
Way more. And I thought, first of all, that made me smile big time, because that's the kind of guy that you want to, humble, appreciative, guy. But you think about that and it's true. And then what happens is, these big funds, there's so much money. And if they don't use it, they have to give it back, and they're transaction based. They're making money on the transaction, and so then you have the run up to the, do we look at 95% leased buildings, or whether it's office or industrial, whatever, that's the highest rental rate ever, and buying it on a 4 cap? No. But they do, and so they do need guys like us that can bring them a deal that's 20, 25,
has yield.
Yeah.
No, the problem right now is just finding deals with yield in them, and how much pain do you want to go through? Because it's a lot on a sponsor or operator to to your point, it's a lot of sleepless nights on those things. I mean, I'd love to just go buy 10-year triple net lease deals all day long and not have to think.
Clip some coupons.
But that yield doesn't capitalize. And and
it doesn't do anything for you on the back end or any upside. It's like in order for us to make a good pop with any kind of upside, you got to you got to hit a 20%.
You do. Yeah. No, I was talking to a large capital markets broker at one of the big firms the other day, and I was like, man, I see your marketed deals, and some of them I think are great because I think there's a great basis play on some of them, and but the yield isn't there, walt's a little long, stuff like that. I said, but the guys that are winning these deals, what are they underwriting to? He goes, well, the not as aggressive buyers are underwriting to a 20. And the more aggressives are writing to a 17. I said, wait a second. When I underwrite your stuff, I'm at a 12. And so I think there's also a lot with those larger companies with that much money. They are plugging things into their model that are not realistic.
Yeah.
And because I was like, okay, well, I don't understand maybe capital at that level. Maybe it's like, hey, we're just looking to make like a 11, because I'm like, that's probably about what you're going to make on these things.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are kind of underwriting some BS in their stuff.
You got we do 3, right? I'm sure a lot of people do that, but we do like, hey, best case scenario, reasonable best case scenario.
Yeah.
What we think is really attainable.
Yeah.
And what kind of a nightmare situation would be if it happened.
Yeah.
And we're pretty. I mean, we're optimistic because we're entrepreneurs and we're brokers, and but you got to be realistic.
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, how can you buy a 95% leased 4.5, 5 cap, whatever it is, at the highest market rents and think that you're going to make a 20?
Yeah, you're just going to keep trending rents up for the rest of the wall.
Yeah.
I think it just goes up into the right. Yeah. And so I guess that's what they're doing, but it just boggles my mind. I'm like, I might be a net seller this year versus a net buyer if that's what people are thinking, So, let me ask you this. Maybe you kind of alluded to it. So what project are you most excited working about right now?
So we do have an office building that's closing hopefully here, and we've got a wooden table, so that's good. In the next couple of weeks, and it's a big project. It's almost 1 million square feet, and it's leased up very well. Even since we've had it under contract, it's leased up very well. I think we can push rates. Yeah. We're buying it on a 12, and I expect that we'll be able to sell it on an 8 or 7. You would think. I mean, I think we'll get there. And I think we can push rates a little bit. And to your point a minute ago, our pro forma on that is same rates for the entire hold period. Yeah. We don't increase them at all. Well, if we're at 85, 90% leased, we're going to
start pushing.
Yeah, we're going to push them. Yeah. And so that's an exciting one. We've done some stuff it's down in Houston. We've done some stuff in Houston. Yeah. Houston is, I was born there, so it's an awesome city, of course, because of that. But I mean, I think it's the 4th largest city in the United States now. And I mean, it's growing and it's diversified. That's the other cool thing is, I remember in like 2015 or even 2007 when we had some crashes, like it was like so much oil and gas, in commercial real estate in Houston, and it's not that way anymore. I mean, I think it's like less than 20% maybe.
That's good. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I can't remember. I looked at it the other day and was shocked how low it was. Yeah. But that's an exciting one because that kind of, the last one we bought was 550,000 square feet. And I thought that was really going to give us a boost. Like we were going to get a lot of publicity and a lot of investors were going to come around. But we bought it in late 21. And so then interest rates started going up the next year and everybody just turned away from it. And now, now this deal, I think will kind of put us on the map and we'll be and I've got a pipeline of some really pretty impressive value add deals that I'd like to do. I don't want to get over my skis, but yeah, it'll be a fun one, man. We'll definitely have a closing dinner on that one.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know what? No one does closing dinners anymore.
I know.
It seems like
I do.
I mean, it's I can't tell you. I mean,
you got to go throw down at Nick and Sam's or Bob's or somewhere. I mean,
we sold a building for like $10.5 million this year, and like the brokers were like, "Hey, cool," and I was like, "You can't even take me to dinner."
Yeah, where's the steak?
Yeah,
we got to get a $500 bottle of wine. Come on.
It's that's kind of a lost form of commercial real estate. I think. I don't think the younger generation does that, but man, we used to always have closing dinners.
Well, that and I think I haven't been to fight night in a while, but I think fight night's changed quite a bit too.
Yeah,
from its days 20 years ago, and that's some fun stuff.
Well, what do you think has been like something that you've kind of always done, like religiously, like a habit or a routine that's kind of made you successful?
I think that for me, one of the biggest things is networking.
Yeah.
And so it's funny. We all have a unique ability, right?
Yeah.
And it's very thin, right? Of the 100% of stuff that we do, we're probably really, really good and maybe better than anybody else in the world at like 1% of that or less. And I've always done a really good job of going to coffees, lunches, drinks, dinners, and I had a hard time realizing that was kind of my unique ability, was to be able to connect with people.
Yeah.
And, I can have something in common with anybody pretty much. And I actually had another business owner who's a friend of mine, and he said, because I used to get upset with myself. Like, man, I'm just out here jerking around and, going and getting a steak and dinner. And he's like, that is your work.
Yeah.
That is what you do. That's what you're best at, because you're going to go to dinner with a guy and you guys are going to be best friends the next day and he's going to do business with you for the rest of your life. He's like, that is your job.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be doing anything else except for that. So I still do that religiously. Yesterday afternoon, went out, had a glass of wine with a buddy of mine, hung out for an hour or so, caught up, and it immediately turned into today going, I should probably stop doing that, right? Clicking. It immediately is going into a lunch. He's running for city council, and it's going into a lunch that I'm going to host at the building with probably 30 people, and none of them have been in the building since we fixed it up, and many of them are CEOs. Yeah. So it's like automatically turns into business.
Yeah, no, I feel like networking has always been something, like from the Mercer company side of things, that like they're just never good at it.
Yeah.
And I think we always felt like, oh, we just got to make more calls. Yeah. I don't have time to network because I'm making calls. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I do a lot more of networking now.
Yeah.
And the power, there's a lot of power in it. You have the right. You take that time and spend it, having a meal with somebody or something, and you just kind of, a lot of barriers get broken down
for sure.
And you get to like really, kind of get to the core of what those people need, and, can you provide those things?
Yeah. And I think for me, it's so important to get to know the person.
Yeah.
What are you about? Where is your ethical and moral line?
Yeah.
What do you think about family? What do you think about, there's a lot of people out there that you don't want to do business with, and
sure.
You can figure that out usually pretty quickly. But for people that do business with me, I want them to know who I am.
Yeah.
I'm proud of who I've become and proud of being the dad that I am and the business leader that I am. So I want them to see that, and then I want them to go ask people like you, hey, do you know this guy? What do you think about him?
Yeah.
And I had a guy that I'm interviewing for an executive level position at my company, and he goes, man, I've talked to 24 people and I can't get one person to say anything bad about you. I said, that's my success.
Yeah.
So.
That's great. Well, what's something about Steve LaMure that most people don't know?
Ooh, I'm pretty open, so
Could be anything.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a definitely a risk taker.
Yeah.
I'm always on the edge, and it's the older I get, I'm starting to go, okay, let's start pulling back from that edge a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I mean, these deals that we do, and you do them too, where you're putting your network. I mean, you're putting everything on the line.
Yeah,
I mean,
my balance sheet's
if it
on
goes
it.
sideways,
Yeah.
it's a rough hole to dig out of. But that goes along with my lifestyle. So you mentioned the rugby thing.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a Harley Davidson that I ride occasionally, not enough, but I fly airplanes.
Yeah.
We were in New Zealand a couple of years ago hunting, and I'm all in my camo, and we're driving by, and it's like the original bungee jumping place. I'm like, stop, and got out and bungee jumped whatever 500 feet or something.
Yeah.
So that rush keeps me going. The same thing even on my land. I've got a skid steer and got some great attachments for it, and I'll just go out and just run the hell out of that thing. And my buddy's always like, they're not really meant to do what you're doing. Like, even though it's a big badass tractor with the track loader, So I think that's probably it. I mean, I think a lot of people that would meet me like for the first time wouldn't know that, but yeah.
Well, what's your hat?
Oh, good call.
Speaking of risk taking,
yeah, no. So it's been cool. It's been painful. But we opened a restaurant in Glen Rose.
Yeah,
we moved to Glen Rose, and there just wasn't great
options.
No options. Yeah, and certainly no higher end options. And so we bought this whole block, or almost the whole block down in Glen Rose, and so it's a good real estate deal. But we opened a restaurant. There was a building there that was built in like 1870, and Glen Rose in Somerville County used to be nicknamed Whiskey Woods during Prohibition.
Yeah.
And there was more moonshine that came out of that area than anywhere else in Texas. They would ship it all over. And there was a raid on August 25th of 1923 in Glen Rose where the Texas Rangers or whoever went and got all the stills and moonshiners and brought them down to the square. Nobody was arrested, but they destroyed all the stills on the courthouse steps. And so I'm reading this book on Glen Rose, and it says that it was nicknamed Whiskey Woods, and I look up whiskeywoods.com, and it's available for sale, and I jump on it. So it's a steakhouse, and we've got a great bar and restaurant, like bar and like a sports bar, but kind of a little bit upper scale, but not high end. And then we've got two like high end dining rooms that are fancy, and then we've got an outdoor. Actually, we need to talk about that. We got an outdoor stage.
Oh yeah,
it's like 55 feet by 38 feet. It's a big stage. Yeah. And so we're starting to do some music, and
that's cool.
So it's cool. I mean, painful because, I thought we were going to be totally hands off. Like we're going to have an operator come in and run it. But we got really lucky with a chef. We've got a great team down there, and the food's off the chain, and, fun.
That's awesome.
So it's my most expensive man cave yet.
So it's Whiskey Woods.
Whiskey Woods, yeah.
That's all right. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Your most expensive man cave yet.
I kept spending money. I'm like, because it's got a speakeasy, and the speakeasy is behind a gun case.
Okay.
So you're walking down the hall, and here's this gun case in the wall with actual guns in it.
Yeah. And
you push it open, and there's a secret room behind it. So
yeah, I mean, cool. You have to have a speakeasy in a restaurant themed around Prohibition.
Yeah. We've got whatever the amendment, the Prohibition Amendment is. We've got that up in the front room, and we've got a bunch of whiskey bottles that are lit from the underside on the walls, and it's cool. It's been fun.
Yeah.
It'd be great to make money on it too.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the employees the other day, because we go in there and eat, not all the time, but once a week or whatever. And it's like, must be nice to get a free steak. I'm like, must be nice to pay $20,000 for the steak.
Yeah. That's what the steak cost this week.
Yeah, that's what it cost. Yeah. So, cool.
Well, man, thanks for coming in and doing this. What a story. It's awesome.
Glad we got it hooked up. It took a little bit, but great to see you, man.
It's great seeing you too, man. It's we've got so many old memories together and all that stuff. So it's
got to do a deal together in 25.
Yeah, we got to figure out how we work together. Yeah. So no, man, I'm really just happy for you and all your success. And
likewise,
glad you take risks because a lot of people don't. And that's where That's where real estate people are made, man, on the edge. So kudos to you for doing it and taking it. So, but well, everybody, Steve LaMure, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right.